Red Shirts Dynasty listeners, before we get to tonight's episode, I want to remind everyone about fantasygo.com. Fantasygo.com is the best place to go for personalized advice in your fantasy football drafts for 2020. Basically, here's the idea. Go to their website, check them out. You find your favorite analyst on there. When you do that, you can hire them to literally help them run your team. There's a personalized chat feature. It's every single thing you're looking for when you want to get fantasy advice. So check them out at fantasygo.com.
Welcome to the Red Shirts Dynasty podcast, a Ball Blast football production. Here are your hosts, Matthew Betz, Matt Okada, and John Helmkamp.
Oh my goodness. Welcome to the Red Shirts Dynasty podcast. Of course, a Ball Blast football production. Okada, we might need to put a new intro song when we put this out on the podcast app for everyone. Can we get The Boys Are Back in Town playing on repeat? Ooh. Oh my goodness. We have not been on a microphone together, the three of us, in honestly at least 2.5 weeks. It has been far too long. We had a little bit of John and Okada while I was away on the honeymoon. Then I came back and John had a scheduling issue. So it was me and Okada. Then I had a scheduling issue again. And then it was John and Okada. So listeners, we apologize. Thanks for sticking with us. But man, I am super excited to be back with you guys tonight. Boys, how are we doing?
It is summer.
Uh-huh.
That is it.
Excellent.
Here's something I'm learning, John. And I don't know how bad it is anywhere else besides Arizona and where I live, but right now, because everyone in Arizona has to have AC and we're all stuck inside, I feel like it's actually not that bad. Whereas for us people who live 5 miles from the beach and so we don't have AC because we don't really need it, all of a sudden this heat wave is here and I'm melting in my house. So I'm taking about 3 showers per afternoon. Terrible.
Cold showers, I assume.
Yes, cold showers. And I'm wearing no pants right now.
Fantastic.
Check them out on YouTube.
Pants. The pants are off. I literally stay inside in my air conditioning unless I have to go outside and walk my dog, and then I'm just cursing under my breath for a few minutes. And then I go back inside, and that's it. But I'm currently waiting on a massive dust storm that I just got a National Weather Service emergency bulletin on my phone 2 minutes before we started recording. So that's exciting.
Perfect timing for the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. That's how's Vermont weather, Betz?
Compared to that, it's beautiful. It's lovely.
I'm sure.
It actually was really nice this past week. High 70s, low 80s all week. Sunny, just fantastic. So yes, it was great. I actually woke up this morning and put a sweatshirt on. It was 60 degrees when I woke up. It was amazing.
You know what? Just go back to your honeymoon. Okada and I've got this. You can get wrecked. Just get
no, it's fantastic. But man, welcome in. We're super excited to talk tonight. Last episode, John and Okada talked the AFC East. Lots of good stuff on there. Mike Gesicki love, as per usual. On tonight's show, we're going again with the East, the NFC East. And of course, we'll talk about it from a dynasty perspective. Before we get into that tonight, I want to remind everyone about the website, ballblastfootball.com. Listen, it's draft season. Like if you're playing redraft leagues, you got to check it out, man. The content is flowing. Our rankings are all up there. Our full projections are currently going through an overhaul, which will be released probably by the time you hear this in your ear holes or in your speaker. And we also have a lot more exciting stuff coming very soon, including some swag, some Ball Blast swag. Very, very soon. Check it out. And of course, remind everyone about our fantasy football community at patreon.com/ballblast. The best, I think, value in the industry. A couple bucks gets you access to the Slack channel, extra resources, our full rankings, our full projections. I mean, you name it, you get all sorts of good stuff on there. So be sure to check it out. And then final reminder, we are still taking entries for the Listener League 2020. Reminder, this is how you enter. If you want to play against Okada, myself, Michelle, and Kate, you have to review both podcasts and Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot, tag at RedShirtsFFPod and at BallBlastFB on Twitter. You'll automatically be entered into the Listener League. And again, reminder, we're not only playing for a trophy smack ring, which is confirmed, by the way. we've been talking about kind of giving away something, whether it's a Patreon month membership or a t-shirt or something like, and you'll get to learn, learn how to beat us. So it'll be fun. Check it out. Boys, anything else before we get into the news?
Training camp. We're here. Pads come on tomorrow, and I am so excited.
I was like, is that it?
Yes.
That's the news.
Yes, that's it. We have
there's some hype coming out of a training camp. So let's talk about that next.
I got great news, guys. Oh, hey, news.
All right, as John said, it is the heart of training camp season, and the pads come on tomorrow. We're recording this on Sunday evening. Of course, you're listening on Monday, so that's today. Actually, the pads are on, and there's a lot of hype about these rookies. Let's start with San Francisco. Coach Kyle Shanahan's talking about Brandon Ayuk, the first-round rookie wide receiver, saying he is, quote, further ahead than a lot of rookies, end quote. Boys, are we surprised by this? Should we read into it? What are we going to do here with Brandon Ayuk? Let's talk about it from Dynasty and then as well from a redraft. And Okada has the Dr. Evil pinky up right now at the corner of his lips. So he is very excited about this news. Okada, tell us why.
Ask me if I'm surprised, Betz. You don't even have to ask. The answer is no.
No.
Listen, I've been telling you guys all offseason that Brandon Ayuk was going to ball. And then when we got the news that Deebo Samuel was going to be missing a lot of camp, if not all of it, and potentially even at the start of the season, I said, guys, Brandon Ayuk has a very good chance to just take that job out of the gate. And I was kind of juggling between he and Justin Jefferson as far as who might be the most valuable rookie receiver for redraft. The scale is sliding more and more towards Brandon Ayuk right now. The fact that he's doing well in camp, the fact that Jefferson was on the COVID list.
Yep.
And yeah, I think he's going to be something for redraft this year. Listen, he's not going to be a wide receiver 2, most likely. I'm not going to say that. But could he be a wide receiver 3? Very possibly. And is that great for a rookie? Definitely yes. And for Dynasty, I hope you picked him where I told you to pick him, which was mid-first round. You probably didn't have to, but if you got him in your rookie draft, congrats. If you didn't, and the person who got him a little later than that and doesn't really know what they have, I'd absolutely offer a first to go get him
right now. Like it's right now because you have you've got about another 5 days before the hype starts really piling on, and then you're not going to have a chance. So. Yeah, I completely agree with Okada. It's great to hear. And this is a coach that really does tell it like it is most of the time. So I trust what I hear out of Shanahan, and he had no problem basically undressing Dante Pettis to the media last year. So
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I've never heard a coach talk so negatively about a player openly to the media.
So if Ayuk was really struggling or was just doing okay, we'd be like, well, he's a rookie and he's out here and he's competing and, he's getting better every day. But no, for him to actually come out and say like, yeah, he's ahead. You're like, oh, okay. I can actually take that to the bank coming from this coach. So I'm very excited for him. I think it's great. He's going to be a yards after the catch monster. Like we've talked about a whole bunch. It's going to be awesome to see.
Would you guys give up if you had a projected, let's say, top 4 2021 pick in a non-Superflex league? Would you give that up to get Brandon Ayuk on your roster?
4th is almost the cutoff. In a non-Superflex, it's probably got to be a mid-first for me to feel comfortable, but so it's right there.
Okay. That gives the people an idea of like how excited we are, but like still don't be silly.
Yeah.
With the trade.
Right.
Okay. Next piece of news with some rookies. We're going out to Las Vegas. If you're on Twitter at all, you know about Bryan Edwards at this point. I mean, the hype is all-time high. Everyone is tweeting about Bryan Edwards, and they're posting one-handed catches from practice. He looks awesome. Guys, what are we doing here? There's news that he might start over Henry Ruggs, and there's more to just the news blurb. It's not just that as the headline, but that's what everyone's seeing. And so I'm asking the question, do you think like are people overvaluing Bryan Edwards before he's done anything in this league? Because honestly, the hype it's out of control.
I mean, certainly depends on where you set the line for him. I don't think it's at all overhyped to say he could be ahead of Ruggs for fantasy. I don't think it's at all overhyped to say he could challenge for best rookie wide receiver in redraft. Now, does that mean that I value him with a first round pick type of dynasty, like even as high as Ayuk? No. Do I think he's going to be wide receiver 2 this year? No. But there's a lot to like about Bryan Edwards. This offense is wide open for somebody to take the lead there, to be the red zone threat. He's 6'3", 212 pounds.
212 pounds.
If you like any of the sort of deeper analytical college stat stuff, like College Dominator and Breakout Age, he is insane in those categories. 94th percentile Dominator, 100th percentile Breakout Age. Woo! So, yeah, he's as good as it gets. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be good in this league. I'm excited to see what he can do. If you got him in your rookie draft, you probably got him at a great value.
Yeah, I like him as a prospect. We were talking about that division last week, and I kind of threw in there at the end that I like him in that offense and that he's got a chance to take over as the red zone threat. He's the tallest wide receiver on the team by quite a bit. He's explosive. He can jump. He's really good at contested catches. And he shows a pretty decent amount of polish and physicality in his routes. So, yeah, we've been talking all offseason since, Henry Ruggs got drafted that it makes sense where they took him for what he does for real life football, but that doesn't necessarily translate to fantasy football. He's going to stretch that offense. Defenses are going to have to account for him and his speed, and it's going to open it up for others. And I really do think that Bryan Edwards has a really good opportunity to grow. Again, I don't know about the level of breakout this year in his rookie campaign, but he's got a really good dynasty outlook to potentially take over that job as being their kind of alpha wide receiver.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, the best value in rookie drafts this past year was Bryan Edwards, going consistently back into the second, sometimes third, and it was just easy to smash the draft button every time. So yeah, we like him a lot on the show. Hopefully the hype doesn't get too out of control, because I still want a lot of Bryan Edwards shares in my life. All right, boys, one quick injury update, and we'll just kind of transition it right into the Washington football team, and we'll start there with our NFC East preview from a dynasty perspective. Alex Smith, what an incredible story, has been activated from the PUP to start practicing. He actually practiced today on Sunday for the first time. His wife put out a really awesome video of them celebrating, popping champagne, and just so happy. So it's so incredible, especially as a PT, to see this. The guy literally almost died, almost lost his leg. It's just a remarkable story. And obviously check out ESPN and Stefania Bell did a fantastic documentary about it, Project 11. So check it out for more details. But anyway, he has been activated. I still find I would be shocked if he played this year, barring anything from Dwayne Haskins or maybe late in the year if things really don't go well for Haskins or whatever it is. So, but for me, I think Haskins is the guy to own here if you are in a dynasty league. Obviously, everyone is worried about Dwayne Haskins. Boys, can we talk people off the ledge after a really down rookie season? Are you guys going out and buying Dwayne Haskins with this news and with the fact that people don't think he'll ever be probably a top 15 quarterback? I don't think people think he has that type of ceiling.
In Superflex, I was kind of already interested a little bit in buying Dwayne Haskins, not going out of my way to do it, but I think he's going to be better than what we saw for most of his first season, including sitting on the bench for most of it, which was the real problem considering his draft capital. But he had some good games to finish the year. He's a guy who, and we bring it up a lot, threw 50 touchdowns in a single season in college. He clearly can produce. The weaponry was a mess last year outside of Terry McLaurin, who was a rookie. He's going to take another step forward. I think that Dwayne Haskins can be a mid to back end QB2 in the near future. That's not super encouraging necessarily, but I think people are viewing him right now as a guy you don't even want in your lineup in Superflex. And so I think at that price, I'm willing to be a little interested.
Yeah, I agree.
I was just going to say, he's going at ADP. He's going at the quarterback 28 mark in dynasty leagues. So
that's way too low.
Yeah. Go ahead, John. What are you gonna say?
I was just going to say I agree. I think that him settling in as a mid-range quarterback 2 is I would say likely that's the outcome. I don't think that he's a total bust and is going to lose his job. I think they showed a lot of confidence in him in this offseason. Even with everything going on there in that franchise and new coach and all the scandal crap and everything going on, he's just kind of been the dude. They didn't go out and really address it. They brought in a backup behind him that Rivera knows from Carolina. And that's it. So he has the opportunity to go out there and continue to develop in his second season. I think he's going to do that. So I have a handful of shares of him, and I'm holding and just writing it out and seeing how he develops.
Yeah, the term quarterback 2 in fantasy is such a nasty stigma about it. No one wants those guys. But in Superflex, you need those guys to win your league. It's just like having a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 4. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not everyone is going to start Pat Mahomes and Kyler Murray in a dynasty league. Like you need these players. So yeah, I'm buying Dwayne Haskins all day. I mean, Pro Football Focus looks at grading these players out, and towards the end of the year, he actually graded out really, really well in terms of how he managed the game and kind of not necessarily lit up fantasy box scores, but still from a real life NFL perspective, showed enough to be like, all right, he's got a chance to take control of the job this year. Let's go to the running back position, because I think it's fascinating. Like, what's going to happen this year? People are on two sides of the coin. I think we can all agree in redraft, Adrian Peterson's probably going to carry the ball 200 times and it's going to be boring and whatever. In Dynasty, I want to know, is it Bryce Love or is it Antonio Gibson? Who is the running back that you guys want on your roster?
John, you go first. No. Okay. You go first, because Betz and I had this discussion to a degree when the news came out about Geis.
Right.
So we've both kind of given a bit of our piece. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Which is great, because I didn't listen to that. So that's fantastic.
Oh, come on, dude. You got to subscribe, rate, and review.
I will. Can I get in on the next drawing?
No, don't let him in the listener league. He's not going to review.
Can I get in on the next drawing for a jersey?
Yeah.
Sure. That'd be great. I don't think it's Bryce Love. I know that Okada does, and he put on Twitter that he successfully acquired Bryce Love in every single one of his dynasty leagues. I think it's Adrian Peterson this year with a little bit of Bryce Love sprinkled in and maybe a touch of Antonio Gibson, mostly in receiving work. But I think it's a new running back in 2021. I don't think the future running back of this franchise is on the roster. So whether that's via draft or they go out in this 2017 draft class that is all coming up on contracts, and some of them are going to change teams if they go out and spend some money at the running back position there, or if they draft next season. But I don't think it's anyone that they have on roster right now. I think it's AP for this year, who's going to be a very boring 200 to 225 carry, right around 1,000 yards, maybe 6 touchdowns. It'd be a boring running back 2 or flex play. And then it's someone new in 2021.
Mr. Okada, your rebuttal?
There's this guy in 2016 who played for Stanford.
2016!
2016.
2020, bro.
Hold on. Who played for Stanford, who rushed for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns. His name was Christian McCaffrey.
Yes,
I've heard of him.
He's pretty good.
Vaguely familiar.
The next year, in 2017, this other guy rushed for 2,100 yards and 19 touchdowns, averaging 2 more yards per carry than McCaffrey did the year before.
Yep.
His name was Bryce Love.
Absolutely.
And he was the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy.
4 years ago.
Then he went and tore his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
He has dealt with a lot of injury problems. There's no denying that. It's what made him drop in the draft, which is the only reason he wasn't a probably second-round pick and getting a lot more hype. And he redshirted last year for the Washington football team. Technically, they were a different name then, but we're just going to call him that. This guy has an absolute butt ton of talent. The only question is whether we will see it come to fruition because of the injuries. Now, if Betz has something to say about him not being able to ever recover or have 3 or 4 good seasons before his arthritis kicks in 8 years, as I'm sure is the case, I'm open to hearing that. But until I do, I expect Bryce Love to play this year. I expect Bryce Love to play the next year after that. Reports out of camp are that he is looking great, and that is not surprising to me because he has more talent than anybody on that roster by a long shot. So I think he can take the RB1 job as soon as mid-2020.
You got to watch on YouTube. I mean, John's just shaking his head, like rolling his eyes, like, we've heard this one before. Okada, shut up. Stop saying these silly things. But real quick, before I let John go again, I just want to talk about the injury because he did have the ACL tear, like Okada said, but then he also ended up having a second procedure to basically address adhesions or like fibrosis inside the joint, which is a common thing after ACL surgery. People don't talk about it quite as much, but it does happen. And that can delay the recovery. It can delay your rehab. It can delay your time to get back to peak performance levels. So, yeah, I think it's definitely valid. I think that is a concern a little bit. The tough part is we just haven't seen Bryce Love do anything for training camp, for preseason, this year or last, obviously this year, or in the season. We just haven't seen anything from him. And it kind of feels like Darius Geis 2.0 because they both had major knee injuries. They both were super exciting in college. They both were going to be the guy. And then
you mean the Darius,
except Bryce Love hasn't strangled
about for this year before he went and got himself arrested?
Well, even if Darius Geis was gonna produce this year, it was gonna be an outlier season. You look at the historical hit rate of guys coming off of injury who don't actually produce in the first year, it's very, very low. So I like Bryce Love's game. I'm just not convinced that it's going to be good for fantasy or that it's really going to develop. Again, this is the Washington football team. By the time they're good, it might not matter. Like that's where I'm at. I'm more excited in Antonio Gibson just because he can catch the football. And you look at the wide receiver depth chart, it's non-existent. It's literally nothing besides Terry McLaurin. So if you're telling me Antonio Gibson's going to see 80 targets this year, which I think is very possible, I'll take that in a PPR format instead of Bryce Love. That's just me though.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there.
We're back.
Antonio Gibson will always be the receiving back.
Yes.
Even if Bryce Love breaks out, I will give you that.
Right. I don't know. I think the ceiling for what we're talking about in terms of Antonio Gibson is like a Tariq Cohen mold. I think that's like the absolute ceiling for what he could be for fantasy purposes, which has its place if he hits his absolute ceiling and is pumped with targets. That would be fantastic. I'm not sure if that's the case, but again, their wide receiver depth is Terry McLaurin. We love Steven Sims. Okay. And then after that, he's got a good chance of potentially being the third receiving option on that team. Yeah, in terms of Bryce Love, I loved Bryce Love in college. When he was having that breakout season at Stanford, it was absolutely fantastic to watch. Like, I loved it. I was a big Pac-12 guy. And I loved his game, and it was so fantastic. It's just been so long, and injuries. I just don't. It's really hard to imagine him like breaking out at this point. Like it's been so long since we've seen it. I don't know. It would be great to see. It'd be a fantastic story for this guy.
For the record, it's not like Devontae Parker. It's been so long since we've seen it. He just hasn't played.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not saying that we've seen bad.
He might be just as good,
him.
And he's 23 years old.
Right, absolutely. Coming off of 2 knee surgeries, so I'm not buying into someone that hasn't seen the field in over 2 years, coming off of ACL in a pretty bad offense. I'm just not really interested in that when I think that they'll probably draft another running back next year, or who knows if they're in a really good cap situation and feel like a stud is what they need, then maybe they'll go out and pay someone. I don't see that being a likely possibility, but I think it's more than likely that they might invest some pretty good draft capital in a running back next year.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. John and I are saying no thank you. Okada says yes please. That's our stance on Bryce Love. I guess you can choose which analyst you like the best, and when you decide who that is, just let us know on Twitter why John and I are correct. Okay, moving on.
Please.
We mentioned Terry McLaurin. If you've ever listened to our show before, you can just fast forward, skip, because the next 30 seconds to a minute is going to be us telling you why we absolutely love this guy. I feel like I've said enough to last the entire season about this dude, so I'm going to kick it over to Okada because he wrote an article on ballblastfootball.com probably about 3 to 4 weeks ago at this point, talking about why Terry McLaurin has wide receiver 1 upside in fantasy. So Okada, anything you want to say about McLaurin, and then we can probably move on to the next team because the tight end room is not good.
Yeah. Well, one of the main reasons that we want to highlight McLaurin is because of how little else we need to highlight on this team. He is going to be the absolute focal point. I could see him getting 150 plus targets. I don't have him projecting for that. I have him for a little less, but That's the kind of upside this guy has. And he has the talent to capitalize on that to the absolute maximum. We saw, a lot of great flashes from him last year. For a rookie, he was very solid, a very good route runner, technical guy. I think he can help Dwayne Haskins develop. And so I'll just give you this one stat because it was my favorite stat from the article, and then we can move on. These are the 7 highest wide receiver PFF grades last year in order. Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, Antonio Brown. In other words, 6 of the best wide receivers of the last decade. And number 7 is Terry McLaurin. That's how good he is.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I don't know what you have to pay to go get him, guys, but pay it.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right,
he could probably have
John,
30%. He could have a 30% market share.
100%.
For sure.
Easily in this offense. He showed that he's more than just a route runner as well, and he makes contested catches, leaping catches in the end zone in double coverage. Dude can do everything. Like you're buying now, or he's not going to be affordable. Period.
Nope.
Like this
100.
The train is going to be rolling hard this season for Terry McLaurin for sure.
And we are leading the way. All right. Next team here. Let's talk about the Cowboys. There's a lot to like on this roster. I don't know that we really need to talk a lot about Zeke. Anything you guys really want to say? I mean, people know what he is. He's fantastic. He's a top 5 dynasty running back. He's a top 5 redraft running back. He's great. He's locked up for long-term time there. I want to talk about the wide receiver room, though, because that's interesting. You got Amari Cooper. You got Michael Gallup. You got CeeDee Lamb as their 3 starters. Fellas, I feel like this is one that I kind of want multiple pieces of this offense in Dynasty. I want some Michael Gallup. I really want some CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper's fine. He's just annoying for how up and down he is. But at those 3 names, who do you think is the most affordable right now, and who do you think is the biggest buy out of those 3?
That's an interesting question.
Because I think the ADP would show like Amari, then Gallup, then CeeDee Lamb. I would assume that's how it's.
That's startup ADP.
Yeah, I can look it up though.
Right now in startups, I think
that could be true. I feel like if you're talking about buying prices, though, Lamb might be harder to get than Gallup.
I think he is too, because people are going to look at the youth, and he's a new flashy toy. He probably costs more to acquire. So yeah, I'd probably lean Gallup would be the piece that I'm going to go out and try and target.
Agree. I would lean Gallup to both parts of your question. Who is the cheapest, and also who is the one I want to go buy, and also the third question of who is the best fantasy receiver on this team. I would still answer Gallup. Yeah. I mean, listen, for this year, and then every year after that, I'm going to lean more and more Gallup over Cooper. But for this year alone, I have them projected within 3 targets of each other, within 4 yards of each other, same number of touchdowns.
Oh, okay.
And you're going to get Gallup's numbers, I think, a little bit more consistently than you're going to get Cooper's numbers, just because of the way Cooper has always played the game. So I pretty much want to own Gallup more straight up. It's very close, but considering their price differences, the value is not even close for me. Give me all the Gallup. And listen, I also like Lamb. Give me some Lamb too. I wouldn't hate owning one of these guys in 3 different leagues across my portfolio.
I did look it up. The current ADP is Cooper, then CeeDee Lamb with the rookie head, then Gallup. And
how close in startup?
About 2 rounds.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense with the prices that I would see, like if you're trying to trade them too. So that makes sense.
I agree. Michael Gallup, man, he was 6th in the NFL in receiving yards per game last year. No one talks about it.
No.
And I just want to buy into the Cowboys offense in general. And it's not even because Mike McCarthy. It's mostly because of Kellen Moore, who in that scheme, Dak was just lights out last year. I mean, their efficiency, their pace of play was up. The production was up across the board. I don't really see that changing this year, especially because the defense probably is not going to be fantastic. So it's going to be a lot on Dak's shoulder. And then obviously we love the receiving game there. And I will just say too, if anyone has doubts about can this offense support 3 wide receivers, Randall Cobb saw 83 targets last year. Randall Cobb. Okay, now we're talking about CeeDee Lamb. Absolutely
not as good as CeeDee
Lamb. Right. So yeah, I'm buying into this offense for sure. What do you guys think?
And I mean,
go ahead.
Well, take it for what you will as well, but there have not been that many instances in the history of the NFL that a team has produced 2 wide receiver ones for fantasy. Mike McCarthy has done it before.
Yep.
With the Packers. So
Jordy Nelson and Devontae. Yep.
Yeah. Take that for what you will.
All right. Love it.
And what I think is interesting about that, just to pile onto that, the way that he accomplished that was one was a yardage leader and one was a touchdown leader. I could definitely see Michael Gallup being the touchdown receiving option in this offense if Mike McCarthy has his thumbprint on it.
Sure.
That's a great point. Let's talk about tight end real quick for a minute. Jason Witten, just like Bob, saw 83 targets. Can you blade hands Jason Witten from Monday Night Football? Saw 83 targets last year. I saw that today when I was doing a little bit of research for the show. I was like, wait, what? Why? What? How? And now we have Blake Jarwin coming in, and you can say, okay, this might be a little bit of addition by subtraction with Jarwin being much younger, obviously at this stage of their career, more athletic. Don't get me wrong, Jason Witten was a stud for years, but clearly his time has come and gone. And now we're looking at Blake Jarwin. The redraft crowd, I feel like, is talking about him quite a bit. But I don't know about you guys. I don't see anyone in the Dynasty circle talking about Blake Jarwin that much. Are you guys interested in adding him to a Dynasty roster? Let's say as your tight end 2, if you already have like a Kittle, Kelsey, Ertz type of tight end.
That's exactly the kind of situation that I'm looking for. If I can get Blake Jarwin as a security piece or a potential breakout piece to go behind a guy I'm safe with in Dynasty and comfortable with for a couple more years, I'd love to do that because I think there is a chance that Blake Jarwin can break out to be a tight end 1. Now, I will say, I don't think he has the upside to be a top 4, join that super elite group. He's not the insane athlete that those guys are. He's not the college prospect really that those guys are. I think he can be decent. I think he can be a Jared Cook type tight end or a Jason Witten of old type tight end who you're consistently getting tight end 8 seasons from, but never quite the Kittle seasons. But I still want to own those guys in Dynasty because coming across a Kittle or a Kelsey is not common. Yeah,
it's tough for me because I'm still kind of in the Blake Jarwin is just a guy camp.
He kind of is.
He is. Like, he's just a guy.
But so is Jared Cook.
But true. And here's the thing. I think that he has the opportunity to be a back-end tight end 1, but what does that really do? Like, a back-end tight end 1 is nothing. Like, back-end tight end 1 is like 8 points a game. Like, gets you into like the top 8. Like, it's okay, fantastic. That's awesome. Next, I'd rather take someone that I think if I'm going to get one of the top 3 or 4 guys, I'd rather take more upside dart throws than take a Blake Jarwin. I'd rather grab an Irv Smith Jr. than a Blake Jarwin because I want to take the athleticism, the dart throw, that someone that I think might be able to get to that top 4 range than someone that I think is going to annually be 6 through 10 at the tight end position. That and those targets last year, fantastic. I'm really glad that he got those. Gallup is going to continue to develop and take more. CeeDee Lamb is going to get way more than Randall Cobb did. CeeDee Lamb could have over 100 targets in his rookie year. And I don't know what's going to be left. We know that Zeke is pretty proficient at catching out of the backfield as well. I don't know that the tight end position is really going to matter a whole lot in this offense. So I don't know. I'm just kind of like, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. There's some other options out there that I think have higher upside that I'd be rather to gamble on.
I think that's relatively fair. I think, with Blake Jarwin, it is what it is, right? Like we all want these like high upside dudes, but if you can get him as like your tight end 2 or tight end 3, and you got to plug him in every few weeks for injury or bye week, that wins you Dynasty titles.
Sure.
Like, you need those players. So that's what you're getting out of him. Like, I'm in, yes. But I think if anyone's expecting like a massive, huge breakout this year, they'll probably be a little disappointed. I will say though, he did get signed to an extension, 4 years, $22 million. So he's locked up. I think he's their tight end for the foreseeable future, unless something happens there, barring unforeseen changes. Boys, Dak Prescott. I mean, what a season. Ooh. I've seen him go in the first round frequently of Superflex startup drafts. Do you guys think that is warranted and that is fair?
Warranted. Yes. AF.
Yep.
Love it.
if I'm drafting between like the 8 spot and the back of the first, it's definitely an option. It's not necessarily the strategy that I tend to like to go, but I would have no problem if you want to, make him the cornerstone of your franchise in the Superflex right there at the back half of the first.
Is he in the Kyler Murray tier for you guys?
He's ahead of Kyler for me.
Ooh.
Woo!
Bets?
Wow. Redraft or Dynasty?
Dynasty.
Dynasty, I have Kyler one spot ahead in my ranks.
Same.
That's I've got
his tier.
Yeah. I
Right?
think it's close.
Yeah, okay.
It's really close.
Then I think we're all on the same page there.
The other thing too with Dak that I just want to highlight for our listeners, I mean, people are like, oh, this insane efficiency through the air, like, is that going to come down? Yeah, maybe, but we also can't forget that in the first 3 seasons for Dak, he rushed for 6 touchdowns every year. He also posted his lowest yardage of rushing last year. And if we consider that to maybe bounce back up and kind of even out, I think things will stay status quo. Dude's a stud. What is there to say? Yes, yes, yes. All right, boys, anything else that you want to talk about on this Cowboys team before we move on to a word from our sponsor?
Not really. Tony Pollard, you probably want to own him. He's one of the best handcuffs in the league, if you can.
Yeah. If you own Zeke, go get Pollard.
Yep.
All right.
That's it.
That's it. Fellas, we haven't talked about this sponsor for a little while, but we got to bring them back because they're showing us some love, so we got to show them some love. We're talking nuts and more. And if you listen to us...
Wait, I want some. Hold on.
Oh, yes, go. If you listen to us in either March, April, we were talking about them for almost like every episode because they're so good. And both guys, Okada and John, left to go get their nuts and more products because they sent us samples as sponsors and just saying thank you. And we can speak to truly how delicious their products are. So what they are, they're almond butters and peanut butters. They are packed with protein. They have these little snack packs you can travel with. They're so easy. I take them to work all the time. Okada's showing you on our YouTube channel. John is currently eating his on our YouTube channel, so check it out. But man, it's so good, and it just feels good to eat something that's like healthy and good for you, but also tastes like dessert. We're talking about cookie dough, like chocolate peanut butter flavors, hazelnut, like so good. So guys, do yourself a favor, check it out. The unique code, I'll put it up on the screen for you on YouTube. It's a little bit of a mouthful, so we'll put it in the description. It's nutsandmore.com/ref equals red shirts. You have to use our code if you want to help us out. I know it's a lot, so we'll put it directly in the podcast description as well as on YouTube. And when you get on that site, check it out. Enter the code red shirts. And they used to only let our listeners save 10% because we were kind of new with them. And they were like, we're not really sure yet if it's worth kind of investing that kind of resources into this podcast. They upped it to 15% for our listeners because of saying thank you. So do yourself a favor, check it out. You will not be upset at all. All right, boys, let's move
delicious.
on to...
Like, it's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
All them proteins.
All the proteins.
Let's talk about the New York Giants. Boys, there's a lot to like about this roster, but there's also a lot that I'm confused about. So hopefully you can help me out.
Okay.
Let's start with Daniel Jones. I've been pretty vocal. I'm in on this dude in Dynasty. I'm even in on him in redraft. I think he's in for an excellent season this year. I don't think what we saw from last year from him was really a fluke. And yes, he only really produced against subpar defenses, but it's the rushing that really just gets me excited. No one talks about it with Daniel Jones. He can provide that floor for you on the ground. Do you guys have him currently ranked inside your top 12 in Dynasty quarterbacks?
I do not.
Hater.
Yeah, sorry. I have him more as a mid-range QB2. Actually, there's this little group of veterans that are all kind of similar that I have right in front of him. Stafford, Cousins, Tannehill. Right now, Garoppolo is. That could change. I could easily see Daniel Jones jumping Garoppolo in my rankings, but I'm still not fully convinced. We talked about this a little bit before, but like, he had a solid year, a decent year, and I feel like it took us all from making fun of him as the worst draft pick ever and absolute garbage out of Duke to all of a sudden top end QB1. Like, it was a good year. Okay, QB1 like of any kind.
QB10.
Yeah. Okay. I need to see a full season where he produces at that level or better before I'm willing to rank him there. For now, he's going to be like in the QB 15 range, which is still not terrible, but I don't want him to be my QB1 if I can help it.
I agree with that assessment. Man, the fumbles are concerning. The fumbles just drive me absolutely insane. How many times did he put the ball on the ground last year? It felt like every other snap. It was so many times. Like his game against Tampa Bay, where he had his coming out party, he was tearing it up through the air. You know, all of a sudden he and Darius Slayton are both fantasy things that happened. Okada's looking super creepy right now with that nuts and more pouch.
Classic.
All of a sudden, like, they burst onto the scene and they become things in fantasy. But I swear he fumbled it 4 times and got like 2 of them back in that game.
I'm literally looking at the game log, the stats. He fumbled the ball a total of 18 times last year.
More than one a game. Like, is that fumbles lost or just fumbles?
No, total fumbles.
Total fumbles. Okay. Man.
Oh my God.
I don't like it. That and Nate Solder opted out on the season. His starting left tackle, who he was, performing sub what we've seen out of him over the course of his career, granted, but he still was a veteran piece on that offensive line. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they're looking at replacing that and what the line's going to look like in front of him. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of with Okada. I'm still kind of wait and see. I'm fine with him as a mid quarterback 2. If I can get, like a Carson Wentz as my 1 and then Daniel Jones as my 2, sure. Yeah, I'd like that combo just fine.
There you go. I would like that as well. Yeah, the nice thing about Daniel Jones too is that I think he's someone that you can target either at ADP or maybe just a little bit below and know that you're going to get those weeks that he booms if you are playing him in Superflex. So that's what I like about him quite a bit. As far as the pass catchers, man, I don't know. I mean, Daniel Jones has weapons for sure. He's got Golden Tate, who's a veteran. He's got Sterling Shepard, who's kind of in his prime years, but I think is what he is at this point. And then he's got Darius Slayton, who we all, I think, prefer in Dynasty. Correct me if I'm wrong. Out of those 3 options, again, I don't know what to pay to get any of them. I don't really know what their value is. Like, I'm just kind of stuck. So maybe you guys can help our listeners out because clearly I add 0 value to this conversation.
I cannot help the listeners out, Betz, because the real difficulty with these guys is none of them is, in my opinion, is the clear one. I think a lot of people are excited about Darius Slayton because he had some really good games last year. That is nowhere near enough to convince me that he is a true one or the one on this team, even because Sterling Shepard has been solid whenever he's played for this team. He's been solid, and Golden Tate is always solid. Now, I don't think Golden Tate's going to be there much longer, and I have him quite a bit lower than those other 2, even for this year. But I don't think either of Darius Slayton or Sterling Shepard is a 120 target guy. I don't think either of them is an 80 reception guy. I don't think either of them is even a 1,000-yard receiver this year. So that just makes it hard for me to want any of them. And unless it clarifies massively this year, I don't want any of them for Dynasty that badly either.
Yeah. I'm kind of with Betz that it's just a little confusing to kind of make out. It's just very muddied. Sterling Shepard has been fine when he's been healthy and on the field.
Perfectly fine.
Perfectly
fine.
We got to make that into a shirt.
That's
perfectly
true.
Fine. That would be fantastic. He's been perfectly fine when he's been on the field. He's dealt with some injuries. Evan Ingram can never put a full season together. Yeah, I mean, the offense was shaping up to be really, really good around an elite wide receiver 1 in OBJ. And then they traded him. And now it's like, okay, now we've got a whole bunch of 2s, but no 1, like Okada was saying. I do like Slayton. Obviously, he's got the youth on his side, which is great because Golden Tate's going to, fade out here in the next year or 2 probably. I don't know how much more Sterling Shepard is going to kind of solidify himself, where it's like you've already been in the league for 4 years now for Shepard, something like that. 4 or 5, maybe
5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was his draft year.
Yeah. So it's been a minute. So it's kind of like, okay, prove it or not. Like, where are we going with you? So he's got the youth on his side. So for Dynasty purposes, I'm willing to take a guy like Darius Slayton that produced pretty well in his first season. And if he continues to develop and take a step forward, I do think that he has the possibility of taking over and being the one there. He's not like your prototypical one. He's not like a real alpha guy. He's not someone I'm super excited about like a Terry McLaurin, but I think that he's a fine piece. I think he could operate as a great 2 if they do go get a 1. If they can bring in a 1 into that offense, it could be a really, really fantastic wide receiver 2.
I like that. I will say out of those 3 options, I think Shepard and Tate are like your safer, more reliable weekly finishers. If you're playing like DFS or if you're kind of in for those boom weeks, that's what Slayton's going to give you. To me, I'm just not sure when that's going to come. I mean, he did lead the team with yards per reception, 15.4 last year. So he was that deep threat for Daniel Jones.
Helping.
Yeah, and if they can continue that path, I mean, the guy has 4.39 speed out of Auburn. So
yeah,
he's a burner. He's fast. Like if that's his role, again, we need that upside in our lineups, but it might be tough to kind of decide when to start him. I'm in hold mode if I own any of these guys because I don't really know. I think their value might stay the same kind of going into next year, and then they draft a stud or like whatever it is. So I'm just in hold mode out of these three options. But we got to talk Evan Ingram next because, man, just 2 years ago, he was like in the conversation for the next like elite tight end.
Yeah.
Still, I think has the upside to get there, certainly has the talent. But as John said, the health has been a concern. He's coming off of Liz Frank surgery. But guys, before surgery, he was on pace to tie Travis Kelce for the most targets at tight end. I mean, if he's on the field, he's a tight end, the tight end 4, the tight end 5.
Somewhere in that range,
like,
easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are we doing with Evan Ingram? I mean, I have slight optimism heading into this year in regards to this season alone, but certainly the injuries are piling up and it is a concern. So what are you guys doing with Evan Ingram in your leagues? That tells you everything you know.
I was trying to decide if I would pay a second for him.
I would pay a second for him.
I'd give a second.
Sure.
I would.
Okay. So I would probably pay a second for him and feel
pay a late first.
Not great. No. It took me some time to decide if I even would pay a second for him.
Okay, fair enough.
And the only reason I would do that is because there's just as much chance that whoever I draft there will get on the field as there is that Evan Ingram will get on the field. Because there's a great chance that guy will be a complete bust in the second round of my rookie draft. And there's a great chance that Evan Ingram won't play any games or spend more time in the blue tent than on the field. Like, this guy is Jordan Reed.
Are
we at that point? I feel like we're at that point. Jordan Reed was
not yet.
Not where Jordan Reed is now, but there was a point where we were still on the fence with Jordan Reed, and we were like, guys, this is the tight end 3 or 4 if he stays healthy for a full season, and he just can't. I'm really getting to that point with Evan Ingram. It's tipping. The fence is very thin.
He was supposed to be the next George Kittle before there was George Kittle.
Yes.
And we just haven't seen it. I will say, if you do want to buy him, now is probably a good time to do it because there's literally no hype around him at all anywhere. So if you think that he has the possibility of bouncing back and giving you 13 games, you're not even banking on a full 16. But if you think that he can give you 13 games of potentially elite tight end production, now's a good time to go do it. In fact, I might go do that. I might go out in some of my leagues tonight and throw some danglers out there and see what happens.
I think that's a great idea. And I'm going to also do that in my leagues, especially the ones that we play in together first. I have Ingram in a couple leagues, and I've actually been trying to trade away Evan Ingram this entire offseason.
Probably not getting anything.
No one's biting. And it's like, I'll throw you a second and a fourth. I'm like, no, I might as well just hold him. So people are down. So if you believe in him, yes, now's the time to go buy. Okay, boys.
If you've been holding him though, what does it take for you to be willing to sell him? We're talking about how Okada is on the fence.
Second.
A high second, late first at smash.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm holding because the hold value is pretty good.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. All right, boys. On to arguably the best franchise in the entire NFL.
Okay.
EAGLES.
Uh-oh.
The Patriots in the Super Bowl was the best day of my life. We're talking about the Eagles.
Boys.
This wide receiver room. Hey, it happened. This wide receiver room is a mess. Let's talk Jalen Reagor. I mean, he's the dude down there if you were going to target a wide receiver. No question. Do you guys think he produces for us in fantasy in year one? Because he might have to by default. I mean, we have Alshon Jeffrey, on PUP, we have him coming off Liz Frank. I'm not projecting anything for him this year. Marquise Goodwin has opted out. They took a couple of late dart throws in the draft. It's JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Deshaun Jackson, and Jalen Reagor. I mean, is he on our redraft radar? What do you guys think?
First and foremost, before Okada starts talking, you said, is he going to produce for us? And I thought that you were lumping yourself in with the Eagles first and foremost.
Oh, no,
when you were saying that.
For fantasy owners.
It's me, Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman, we're all boys.
Hanging out together, drinking White Claws.
Here's my issue. Here's my issue with Reagor and producing this year. So we talked about Brandon Ayuk. We talked about Justin Jefferson. We talked about Terry McLaurin last year. The reason that these guys have high redraft upside, even as rookies, is because there's nobody else there. As bad as the Eagles are, there are people there. Like Alshon Jeffrey is a wide receiver one of the past who is still holding on to that role. If he's healthy by the time the season rolls around, they're going to want him to be the guy. Deshaun Jackson is a former, top-end talent. Both these guys are old, but both of them are veterans who are going to demand targets and attention and roles in this offense. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is a guy they drafted highly. Greg Ward is freaking Greg Ward, okay? But last year, he kept the team alive.
I was starting him in fantasy lineups.
Yes,
I know.
Because he literally kept this roster alive. He was the only person who could catch a football last year.
Didn't he catch a touchdown against my Seahawks?
Probably.
I think it was the last game of the year.
So it is like there are more wide receiver threes on this team than any other team in the league, but all of them technically have like the one up on Reagor for the rights to be the top options in this offense. So if he was on the Redskins, I would view him as a potential wide receiver 3. I like Reagor as a talent. I mean, the Washington football team. Sorry.
One of the
former Redskins
this year.
Yes. But he's not. He's on a team full of veterans, and I don't think he's ever going to get a chance at having 80, 90 targets. So I'm not really super interested in Reagor for this year. I do love him for Dynasty, though, because all those guys are going to be retired in 2 years, and Reagor could be the guy.
Yeah, when he's looking to make a second or third year breakout, they're not going to have Djax and Alshon Jeffrey there anymore. So, yeah, hold him in Dynasty. Just stash him away. Put him in the coat closet and, put him on mothballs. The wide receiver 1 on this team is Zach Ertz.
True.
That's the wide receiver 1 on this team. The wide receiver 2 might be Dallas Goedert.
Yep. The wide receiver 3 might be Miles Sanders. Yes.
Oh, that was awesome.
Oh, man.
That has to be up on our social media pages tomorrow for sure.
Oh, boy.
What are we doing with those tight ends, though? Because I like
both.
Redraft 100%. Smash the draft button on Zach Ertz. He's going to dominate this year.
Yep.
There's been a stigma. I feel like people are talking about it for 3 years now. They're like, the end is coming for Zach Ertz. Sell him now. It'll never be this good. And he did have an outlier season from target perspective a couple years ago. But we just talked about the wide receiver room. What? He's going to be the one. I'm buying him in dynasty formats, and I'm definitely targeting him in redraft. No doubt about it. He's also only 29 years old. I mean, if you trade for Zach Ertz and you can get him for 2 to 3 more years, I mean, 100%. And you're getting him for a late first. You guys in on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got 2 years left, in my opinion. He's still got 2 years left on his contract, and I think he's still got 2 years left as a top-end fantasy tight end as a result. Well, the only thing that sucks about it is that Dallas Goedert could be a top 6 tight end if he was on any other team, and he's stuck behind Zach Ertz. I think that they maybe drafted him either planning to run a lot of 2 tight end sets that they really haven't done so much, or just hoping he would be the successor.
Full well they did it just to punch the Cowboys in the face. That's the
also that. And then the Cowboys got them back by drafting.
Oh, Jason Witten's going to retire, and you guys need a tight end?
Yeah.
So do we.
Get wrecked. But to John's point, I want both of these guys. I mean, ideally, I don't want both of them on the same team, but I want both of them in my dynasty portfolio because I think Dallas Goedert is great. I think he could be a back-end tight end 1 this year, even with Ertz on the team.
I think so too.
And same thing next year if Ertz is still there. And then if and when Goddard ever gets his chance to be the true one on this team or another, I think he can be a top-tier tight end.
I completely agree with that. In Scott Fishbowl, I went with the triple stack of Carson Wentz and both of his tight ends.
I love it
on my roster. So yeah, I agree with that. When we did our tight end ranking show month or two ago now, we talked about it. We have Dallas Goedert inside our top 12. At least I do. I don't remember where you guys had him, but I do think that Dallas Goedert can produce back end tight end 1 numbers, even with Zach Ertz there. This offense is going to run through the tight end and the running back. That's going to be how this offense is constructed a majority of the time. So backtracking to what we just said about Jalen Reagor, yeah, I don't see him getting 80 to 90 targets this season. Because of that alone, both of those tight ends will have more targets than Jalen Reagor, I think. I think Dallas Goedert has more targets than Jalen Reagor.
I have Dallas Goedert with more targets than every receiver on this team.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't agree. I'm just saying it's just kind of silly to even think about.
It is.
Yes, I'm in on both these tight ends for sure. And I feel like with Goddard, the best thing about him is just like you don't have to pay a starter price to get him, but you know that if anything would ever happen to Zach Ertz, you have a top 5 tight end
to the freaking moon,
without question.
Yeah.
And with this kind of setup here, we're talking about these tight ends. Dallas Goedert versus Zach Ertz. Again, people always want to argue like who is the one you should buy in Dynasty? Who? Yes, just do it for both of them. Just do it for both. Yes, the answer is yes. All right, boys. Last player that I really want to talk about. We can talk about Carson Wentz too if you guys want. He's kind of like the best quarterback in the league. Is Miles Sanders. I mean, the hype. We talked about Brian Edwards hype. Miles Sanders hype is to the friggin' moon, as John just said. You have to pay a lot to get him in redraft leagues. He's going in the first round. In Dynasty startups, he's going in the first or second round. So too high? Would you sell Miles Sanders with the hype? What do you guys think?
That's actually an interesting question, whether you should sell Sanders while the hype is where it is now. Because it's pretty close to his ceiling. Having said that, I expect him to hit it. So I don't really know if I can. Because if he hits it this year, that just raises his price.
Right.
And I think that's probably what happens. Listen, this guy is extremely talented. He's in an extremely good situation. He can catch the ball extremely well, which most Dynasty leagues are PPR leagues, so that's going to help you. He is going to be, we just talked about him being the 3rd receiving option of this team. He's going to have potentially 80, 90-plus targets on top of very good rushing ability. Yeah, the hype is very high. The selling price is pretty good. So, maybe if you have a bunch of running backs by some miracle, because that's not very common, then Miles Sanders might be the one to sell because you can get a great value for him and go get another wide receiver or something like that to flesh out your roster and balance it a little bit. But that's probably not very common. You're probably relying on Miles Sanders as your 1 or your 2, and I'm very happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that there's this common misconception in Dynasty football that you have to sell anyone that has value. It is okay to actually hold a player and get the points for your team.
Yes.
I was like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Everyone was like, "Oh, you got to sell him. You got to sell him now." It's like you drafted him for a reason. Like he's going to be fantastic. So
you don't have to sell everyone that is worth something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to just get the points and win this year.
Sometimes it's good to buy the high price player. Like we talked about AJ Brown coming off of last season. Buy him high. So that's a really great point. Yes, there is hype. That does not mean you have to sell. Just capitalize on it if you can.
Yep, I love it.
I agree. I think we're all in on Miles Sanders being an RB1 this year and for Dynasty purposes. I think that he has, at least 3 more seasons of really top tier production in that offense, depending on what happens with, his contract situation in a couple years when they need to decide whether they're going to re-up him or not. We play for 2 to 3 years down the road. Like we've said 1,000 times on this podcast, he's perfect in that window. Like this is a running back that you want for a championship run in the next couple of years.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, Miles Sanders or Joe Mixon?
Oh, Sanders. So fast for me. I hate that question so much.
Talking Dynasty?
Yes.
I see it all the time
I'm
on
taking
Twitter.
Sanders.
Ooh.
I see it all the time on Twitter.
If you would have asked me at the end of last year, I would have said Jacobs, but just with how little there is.
They haven't added anyone. Yes. Well, and they haven't added anyone. We talked in the offseason about the Eagles are probably going to go get a veteran. They still haven't done it.
Still, and it's August 16th as we're recording.
Football starts in 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, so
Thank God.
yeah, that for me is Sanders, because we have not seen the receiving opportunities for Josh Jacobs. If Josh Jacobs were to get 50 targets, Josh Jacobs could be scary good. He'd be entering like the Zeke tier of running backs if Josh Jacobs had 50 targets, but we haven't seen it. They're saying they're going to give it to him, but how much coach speak are you ready to believe? So as of right now, it's Sanders. I'm not going to be surprised if Josh Jacobs is more expensive next offseason.
I think that's fair. Real quick, can you guys tell me who the leading rusher is in a single season under Mr. Doug Peterson in his tenure in Philadelphia? No, you cannot.
Jordan Howard?
John, you got a guess?
In Philly for Peterson? I think it's Miles Sanders. I'm not here. I think it's Sanders.
Wendell freaking Small.
Small.
Yes. Anyone out there who's saying, you guys, you three, what are you doing? Like you don't realize he used the running back by committee, do you? He had no one. He had to use a committee. It was Wendell Smallwood. Wendell. So yeah, that argument, I just won't hear it. Like, no way. It's Miles Sanders backfield through and through.
Good gracious.
Guys, last player to talk about, Carson Wentz. I think he's a value. I really do. I mean, people have this kind of idea in their head, and the last thing they saw from him last year was Jadeveon Clowney giving him a concussion in the playoffs. Broke my heart. I might have cried anyway. And they think he's just injury prone, and really, like, you guys know my thoughts on that. I don't think he is. I think he's got plenty of opportunity and health this year and beyond. I'm buying not only because I love the Eagles. I'm also buying because of the fact that this offense, it has been top 8 in plays per game all of Doug Peterson's seasons as a head coach. The team is going to be up tempo. They're going to pass the ball a ton. He's got dual threat capability as a rusher and a thrower. I feel like people were in love with Wentz 2 years ago. Now they're like, he's fine. And I'm buying all day.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's some tough hills to climb with Wentz. The injuries have been saddening, and the weaponry, well, at least the wide receiver weaponry, is awful. The overall weaponry is made up for, as we've talked about on the last 10 minutes, by the tight ends and the running backs, but you want your quarterback to have good wide receivers. It's the NFL. That's their job. And the Eagles don't have any. So that is tough. Having said that, and listen, I've been vocal about being kind of down on Deshaun Watson. He's still very good. I am debating between Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson in my dynasty rankings on a daily basis.
Love it.
Like, I think Carson Wentz is closer to being a top 6 quarterback than he is to being outside the quarterback 1 range. And I think most people kind of have him as a fringe QB1 right now. So I agree he's a buy, especially right now when they haven't figured out their receiving core. I expect them to do it at some point. I think that they have one of the best front offices in the NFL, and I think that they'll support this quarterback.
I completely agree. And I love that point between him and Watson. I'm right there as well. I have Wentz 1 spot behind Deshaun Watson in my dynasty rankings.
Same. For now.
And yeah, for now, if they
ask us tomorrow.
if they add some wide receivers to that room over the next year, basically it's going to come down to whoever has the better wide receivers for those 2. If Houston does the same thing, if they go out and get a couple wide receivers, okay, great. Watson's going to stay there, or maybe even bump up a spot or 2 in my rankings from where I have him right now. Same thing with Carson Wentz. He's very, very good. Makes a lot out of basically nothing all the time. Is a very talented passer. I don't think he's injury prone either. They've been a couple freak injuries. Yeah, I want Wentz everywhere. He's a locked and loaded quarterback 1.
Love it. All right, boys. We're back. We did it.
Woo!
Swimmingly, under an hour and 5 minutes. So go us.
Nice.
Man, Okada and I kept it right
under an hour and 5. Yeah.
Yes.
I listened back. I heard. I was very
shamed by you, so we had to do it.
Oh, man. Boys, it's always fun to talk football, and of course, it's good to get back, 3 of us. If you're liking what you're hearing, listeners, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It helps us out a ton. And when you do it, you might as well screenshot it. Try to get in the listener league. Check out the website. Check out Patreon. We're back for one more episode later this week. Boys, anything else for the people?
Training camp, baby. Hype season
Training
is real.
camp.
Best shape
Go
of
get
his
Bryce
life.
Love.
Okay,
No.
we're going to close out the show on that note. Until next time, we are the Red Shirts.